You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 21 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. We're here. We're in studio today. We had intended to be at the Dry County Brewery in Kennesaw, but that just didn't work out for weather-related reasons and power-related reasons and a lot of reasons. So we're here in the studio, and we're doing this live. And we've got some birthday cake here. $5 birthday cake.
Where's your happy birthday? Is your balloon?
And I've got a happy birthday balloon as well.
Tell everyone how old you are.
Well, I am 29, so
34.
Yes, I am. I'm 34 in all reality, so probably half of my life is over.
What do you
statistically.
plan? What is your main goal in your 34th, or technically 35th year of life? What is your main goal this year?
My main goal this year?
Yeah, what's one goal you have?
Well, I mean, I'd like to make $1 million, you know?
I'm sorry.
That's ultimately where I'm
Do you
at.
set goals for yourself every year?
Not on my birthday.
Why not?
Because every day is a new day. You can set a goal any day you want.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I've ever, done that.
Have you ever set a goal?
Really?
I'm just asking.
Yes, I have set goals.
Like,
He's an Army veteran. I'm offended.
it's not personal. Some people some people won't set goals because they just want to live in the day.
Right. No, I get that. No, I've had goals. I don't know that let's see, I think when I was younger, my goal was to be married and have 2 kids by the time I was 25. I failed miserably at that.
I thought you were married at 25.
No, I didn't get married the first time until I was 28.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. I have to remember that, sometimes I think we're closer in age.
Closer in
than
age,
we
yeah. No,
actually are.
I'm 40. 40. I'm 40. And
I'm
Jessica's
still
10
in my
years
20s.
younger
I'm
than
still
me.
in my 20s.
Till next month when she'll be 30.
Yeah.
30.
The big 3-0.
Life is
so,
over.
Happy birthday. Yeah. We're already planning the Jessica Salaji 30th birthday party. We don't know where it's going to be, but it's going to be the 30th birthday bash. We're going to do it up the same way that people normally do a 40th birthday. We're going to everything's going to be black, and we're going to have a lot of tombstone decorations.
Some over the hill.
Yeah, over the hill type stuff.
That
It's
will
all
be our
gonna be
last
black
show
and
on this
purple.
podcast.
Well, looks like we have some people commenting.
They're just watching. No one's commented any questions yet.
Yeah.
If you want to ask Jonathan a question specifically, or Matt a personal question, you can at any time. Just chime in.
Yeah, I mean that's why we're live. That's why we're live. So
Is it? I thought it was so we can make fools of ourselves.
Well, I mean, look,
We do that every week.
Yeah.
We just do it on recordings.
Yeah, we're doing it on a
We
larger.
willingly put it out on recording.
Yeah, we're doing it on a larger scale now because I'm not here to be the safety net behind the little editing machine. So
There's no censoring.
Yeah, I mean, I can edit the audio on this for the subscribers on the download the podcast, but what goes out here stays here.
Can I lower this?
It's like Vegas.
Do what you
I mean,
want.
do what you want.
Well, you put it here.
Yeah.
You're an expert.
I mean, well, thank you. I appreciate that vote of confidence. So we got a lot of things going on this week. We've got Justice Kennedy is retiring. That's the big breaking story of the afternoon. So we're going to get into that, and we don't. I say we're going to get into it. I guess we're just going to sit around and basically just opine about it because there's no real information. Trump hasn't made any statements that I've seen about and we can certainly look to a lot of the Washington political pundits who all think they know where Trump's going to go with that nomination, but no, I don't guess anybody really knows.
He was a Reagan nominee, right?
I believe so. I'm not 100% on that. Jessica
Yes, he was.
researched that. Okay.
1987, so 31 years.
31 years. Wow, it's hard to believe somebody born in 1987,
Right.
31 years old.
Not me.
Yeah.
Right. I was in the 3rd grade.
You know what's going to be interesting to see, though, is who was it that the Democrats or the Republicans wanted the Democrats to hold off on until after the elections, appointing or confirming? Who was that?
I can't remember the name of that justice, but it was the last potential Supreme Court justice that Obama tried to push through after.
So do you think Republicans are going to wait
No.
until after the midterms, or do you think they're going to hurry?
No, they're going to hurry.
Yeah, they are.
Interesting.
No, they'll hurry because they're going to want that. They're going to want another conservative on the.
Yeah.
Yeah, Facebook has already been blowing up with people just mortified by the fact that Trump is going to be appointing a justice, which they're not going to be.
He already has.
I know, but this is
Now he gets 2.
right. I know, but two. That's I
mean,
feel like they looked at it as like a fluke. Now
Yeah.
it's like in stone.
You know,
Right.
I mean, look, the thing about it is that, I have been impressed with Gorsuch. I truly have, Gorsuch, yeah.
Gorsuch.
It's a name that I read a good bit, but rarely say.
Say out loud, right?
All I know is he's
Like
the,
your last name. I
right.
don't say it out
No
loud.
one says it.
Like Jessica,
Jessica S.
The one with the last name that no.
Yeah.
I've been called worse. But no, it'll be interesting because, everything is so divisive. We're not at the place anymore where people are like, oh, well, that justice won't be so bad. Everyone is the absolute worst to the side that's not in power.
Right.
There's no good conversation. There's no conceding. There's nothing.
I agree with that. I don't know. It's kind of like that Maxine Waters thing, man, where you got like elected people openly calling for folks to mob other. It's just
Yeah.
the state of politics has gotten ridiculous.
And that's a difficult deal because, look, it's, on the one hand, I think that as libertarians, I think all of us support, the right of a business to, pretty much, boot out anybody that they want to.
Right.
But, along that same line, I mean, you're talking about mobbing people for political beliefs.
Right.
And, while I think that, the Red Hen certainly should have the right to do it, I also don't think it was the right thing to do. I think that, I think it was a pretty stupid move on their part. And also, I think it's pretty dangerous. I think it's a dangerous idea to start that, we're going to start, throwing people out that disagree with our political beliefs. And that, that really goes back a lot to something that I've noticed that it's no more, and I think this kind of goes back to what we were talking about a second ago. There's no more of people that just don't agree with you politically. Now you're a bad person.
Right. Yeah.
That's the thing is you can't just say, oh well,
Right.
Jessica
He's a nice
believes
guy.
this
We
and-
disagree.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
we disagree, and he's a
Yeah.
terrible human being.
Yeah, and it's even become that way within things that go on, even in political parties. If people inside the same political party don't agree, oh well, this guy's a bad person.
Right.
And it's just one of those deals where it's you can't just disagree anymore, and that completely reframes every argument because it's not just you and I disagree. Let's meet in the middle. It's like, oh well, he's an evil person.
Right.
You think that's because of social media?
I think it helps.
I mean, social media has emboldened people to say whatever they would say. I mean, if you were sitting at a round table with a bunch of people, they'd be far less likely to say, you're a terrible person because you support X person for governor, versus on Facebook, it's so simple to be like, you have no character, no morals, and your kids are bad,
Right.
I mean, it's so easy on social media.
I agree. You do. People tend to say things on social media that in real life would catch a right hook, man.
Right.
Yeah, either that or they wouldn't say.
Right.
And it's.
We have our first question. That says, y'all think there would have been strategic value in McConnell holding off on confirming Trump's pick until after the election? He said today they are moving on it before the election, which we just talked about. And any chance GOP can't confirm Trump's selection?
Well, I think that one thing that Kennedy has certainly done is he's certainly, thrown a lot of leverage to the Senate right now. So, I mean,
they have not sided with him on everything, though. I mean,
right.
he does have to be strategic with who he picks. And I don't know how you appease everyone because there are 2 Republican parties in the GOP right now in Congress. So,
Right.
which one does he pick? The establishment or the Trump?
The Trump side of the Republican Party.
Right.
I can't remember what pundit it was, or I would cite it, but I heard today that from one of the pundits on cable news that he was that in his opinion, who Trump was going to nominate was a libertarian-leaning person on the quote conservative list. Which, by the way, has this conservative list that Trump has ever been publicized, or is it,
I feel like there's some conversations. I know Georgia Poll today put out an article speculating that there were 2 people. One was Justice Blackwell, who could be considered for the Supreme Court. But I know that a lot of libertarian-leaning people were pushing for Judge Napolitano.
Well, always. Every time every time a Supreme Court, every time a SCOTUS pick comes up, it's always Napolitano. So, I'm not surprised by that at all.
I don't know, man. The SCOTUS is a joke. I want to see him put like Judge Judy on there. Anyway.
And Coulter.
You do have to be an attorney, right?
She is.
No, I know, but like a real attorney.
A real one, like a Chris Carr attorney.
Ugh. Boo. Andrew Tracy wants to know if Matt thinks taxation is theft.
Absolutely.
Well, that sums that up.
He says that
To
while
put it
wearing
briefly.
a public landowner shirt.
Right.
It is.
Speaking of public land, why don't you tell us about your
My trip to go see the rainbow
super
people.
weekend?
Yeah, I really would like to.
I say rainbow people. It's a rainbow family gathering.
To hear, to recap on this, last week we had Greg Finan from the Dahlonega Nugget, who he's been traveling up there a great deal, and Matt asked him if he could come up there with him, and Greg obliged him on that, so they went up there, and you had like a 4-mile hike in, right? That was...
Well, first tell everyone what it is, so in case there's people watching
Yeah.
who don't know, who missed last week.
All right. So what the Rainbow Family is a group of people. It was started in 1972, and it was a group of Vietnam vets who wanted to celebrate the 4th of July without fireworks, basically. So
Makes sense.
yeah. I mean, I think we've all, especially in recent years, we've probably all seen vets
Yeah.
that run out of fireworks shows with their hands over their ears, crouching in the corner. I get it. So that's kind of how it started, and then it grew from there. And it's like I use the word hippie to describe it, but I think that our generation wanted to celebrate the 4th of July.
That's what you sound like.
My apologies. I'm having
Our
technical
expert
difficulties.
is struggling with his phone over there.
So
Hippie.
yeah, I use the word hippie because I think that we say it in a different way than probably our parents meant it. Like it's not. Like, I don't think when I say it, I don't mean it as a derogatory term. It's a way that I just typically describe people who kind of operate outside of what you would think of as a social norm when it comes to life in general and maybe anyway. So we go up there, and it's in Bull Mountain. It's up in North Georgia, just outside of Dahlonega. And one of the first things that we came across was the communications tower. Why are you laughing? It was a communications tower that they had set up by Southern Link. It was in the parking lot of a church, right on the main road, to help facilitate their
Sorry.
radio communications.
I appreciate what they're doing. I just can't stop thinking about the children's parade and the Let's Give Peace a Chance. But I'll let you get to it.
So there was a lot of kids there.
I believe it.
So
a lot of families.
Yes,
Yeah.
and dogs.
Yeah, good Lord, everyone had a dog. And it was funny because, you know, on the forest, on the National Forest, your dogs have to be kept on a leash, right? But there's no law that says you got to have the leash in your hand. So there's dogs running everywhere, dragging a freaking leash behind them. It's awesome. So
That's one way to fight the man.
It was you get to the gate and Greg, he drove past the area where with the welcome camp. So I didn't get to experience the welcome home and the hugs and all of that, right? But we did pick up.
But you were hugged later in the day, right?
Oh, dude, I was hugged a lot. Like, I've never been told I love you so many times in my life in, like, one day.
Did
like,
you say it back?
No, I didn't. But there really was a point towards the end of it, because I was there for about 8 hours.
Right.
That, like, you legitimately felt like you probably need to start saying it back or these people are going to be offended, right?
Up on the mic.
But, so we parked at the gate, and it's about 4 miles to the next gate. And they had us, you know, had all kinds of cars, you know, they're parked all along the side of the road. That's where everybody parked their stuff. And the Forestry Service had a bunch of no parking areas on there. And they made no sense because I don't know if you've ever been on Forestry Service road, but every couple of 100 feet there's wide spots in the road to allow you to turn around, right? Because they're like a lane and a half. It's not 2 full lanes, right? But everywhere these wide spots were, you couldn't park there. You had to park along the side of the road in these narrow spots, and if you had more than 2 tires, meaning one from each axle, in the roadway, you could be towed. Most of the vehicles were, they were new late model vehicles. They weren't, you know, what you think of as old hippie vans. There was a couple of converted buses, school buses that were painted up. Most of those had kitchen equipment in it that they had gone down, dropped off, and then hiked in. The few that were like what you would think of and be like, man, that's a beater. If they were like leaking oil, these people had gone and put pans under it to catch the oil, things like that. Things that, like, I know normal folks don't
Right.
do.
They don't even do that at Walmart.
Right. So we hiked past all that and we got down to kind of like the main intersection. And this is where the TAC team with the Forestry Service was hanging out. This was where they would search cars. But what typically happens is you would drive in and you drop off all of your equipment here that you're going to camp with. And then you would drive back out 4 miles, park, then hike in. And then from there you had another about 2 miles that everybody was kind of dispersed down this road. And, you know, when you think of, you know, a couple thousand people camping, you think of like, well, kind of like the Boy Scouts when they have these big giant campouts. They all get in this one giant field and it's tents this far apart. It looks like a FEMA camp. And it wasn't like that at all. They were very dispersed. I took a lot of pictures that showed where you'd see one campsite over here and then 100 yards up over here's another campsite. And that it was just, that's where they slept. And then they had, it seemed like most of them didn't cook meals in their individual campsites. There were community kitchens. And the footprint of those kitchens was a lot like what you tend to think of as like a Western elk camp. And they had ovens that they built out of stone and the red clay. I got a couple of pictures of that. They told me that they were cooking pizza in one of them. And then they would gather rocks and build up the stove so that they didn't have to dig fire pits. And they had iron grates on there that they were doing all the cooking there. One guy was telling me that when they got there, they realized pretty immediately that they had done a controlled burn last year. And I picked up on that too. And in the bigger camps, so let me back up. In a lot of the national forests up there, it's all hardwoods. And that's because that's just kind of the natural way that forests grow. It starts out as pines,
Sure.
and then all the hardwoods, because they need less sunlight, they grow, and then they outgrow the pines, which do need the sunlight, choke them out. Well, when you do a controlled burn like that, the first thing to sprout up are little pines. And these guys went through in these bigger camps that they knew were going to trample these little sprouted pines, and dug them up and transplanted them to other areas. So, let's see, that was the cooking camps. Oh, their stoves were built up on rocks because it's easier to kind of erase the fact that that was there than with a hole. The coolest part was the water distribution system there. They go up and they find a spring head on top of a mountain, and they tap into it there. And they had like that 1-inch water lines, black water line. They had hundreds of feet of it everywhere. And then they stick what they called a water ogre or a water troll. And he sat up there next to this spring head, made sure nobody came up there to pee in it. And the water runs down, runs into one of the big 250-gallon, like you see them, it's big plastic cube that's got the aluminum cage around it.
Yeah.
Right? Runs into that. But there's a triple filtration system on the outside of that it runs through. And then from there, it disperses down into the lower camps and into some of the common areas down there.
So how long does it take them to, did you talk to anybody about how long it takes them to set up for how long they plan to stay, and how long do they stay?
The main event is scheduled for July 1st through July 7th, so that it gathers that week. But obviously they were there 10 days before that.
Right.
And then the cleanup team intends to be there up to 6 weeks afterwards.
Wow.
Everywhere that I saw was every kitchen had trash collection, and most of them were divided up already: glass, metal, plastic, paper products like that. They had a roving trash patrol that would walk around and just ask you, do you have any pocket trash? And if you had trash in your pockets that you picked up or whatever, like everyone there smoked. I think I was the only guy that didn't smoke cigarettes. And they would get done smoking, and they would put the cigarette out on the bottom of their foot and then stick the butt in their pocket. People walking around, they would pick up random pieces of trash and stick it in their pockets, and then when these roving patrols came by, they would empty out their pockets. I did see the bullet collection thing that Greg was talking about with the kids and the candy. That was kind of neat.
What was like the overall ambiance and the attitude? I mean, I know you said that everyone was talking about how much they love each other and embracing.
Ambiance.
But yeah, but what was the mood? What do you do all day? Like,
All right, so like they had all kinds of stuff. They had one camp that was just tea and coffee, right? And then that's what these guys specialized in, making tea and coffee. And people hung out there just like you would in a coffee shop,
right.
like kind of what you think of like the one from Friends,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it was this tent. I got a couple of pictures of that, and there's a guy playing a guitar in there, and they were singing. There was a little girl playing. She was acting just like any other kid, and got bored and ran over here and started covering herself up with dirt. But the various camps, too, some of them, they were all named, and like if they had jobs, that's what they did. So there was one camp called Nick at Night, N-I-C at N-I-T-E, Nick at Night, and their job was about 11 o'clock. They went and kind of did a roving thing to every camp out there and provided nicotine, cigarettes.
Just to interrupt you, we had a couple of people ask what we're talking about. They just joined us. So we're talking about the Rainbow Family Festival in North Georgia that gathers annually?
Yeah, they gather annually. They have a national gathering annually.
Right.
And they have regional gatherings apparently more often. And then additional local gatherings.
And these people
Yeah.
spend weeks in the woods living, off the grid with full systems is what we're talking about. These people would survive the apocalypse far longer than most of us.
Absolutely. Some of them, now, like some people, they're just using, like, it's a college professor. He spends his vacation doing this.
Right.
There were others that I'm absolutely certain that this is what they did. This was their way of life. They lived here at this gathering for the next 3 or 4 weeks, and then would go out into town, work some job, cut somebody's grass or whatever for gas money to get to the next one.
And just to kind of recap for everyone, as to how we got here and why we are discussing this. What actually brought our attention onto this is the fact that Sheriff Stacy Gerard, who's the sheriff of Lumpkin County, has deputized over 30 U.S. Forestry Service officers out there on Bull Mountain, and they are setting up roadblocks out there. There's been several cases that have already come forward. Matt, I know that you had spoken to a couple of guys that actually had their court cases pending in federal court in Gainesville, correct? Yeah. So.
Well, I didn't speak to them. There were people that were speaking about it. The man in particular was an Afghan war vet, and man, the details are a little fuzzy. I want to say he was shot like 5 times, lost a leg, nearly lost an arm, and they searched him, and they made him strip naked on the side of the road in front of 11 people so that they could search his prosthetic leg. And they did it without a warrant.
Did they find anything?
No.
Okay, but he was arrested for obstruction, correct?
Yes, and then he had to go to court, and he went to court Monday or Tuesday, and they set his jury trial for July 3rd, which is really fast. I don't know if
super
y'all
fast,
ever dealt
especially on a federal property. But have you heard of any instances where people were searched and things were found?
I have not. I mean, it wouldn't look.
I'm sure there's weed out there.
Oh, there was. I was kind of disappointed at the amount of weed that I didn't see. Mm-hmm. Really.
But what we're talking about is that droves of people aren't coming up there with illegal drugs and illegal items and entering the park for this festival.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean,
away.
At one point, they were searching like every third car just because.
Right.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I have no idea how they would get weed in there at this point with the amount of drug dogs and this ICI team, which is Incident Command Intervention.
My understanding from people that I've spoken to is that particular team, I've been told, and this may be a rumor, I'll go ahead and disclaimer with that, but I've been told that this team actually follows the Rainbow family around the country.
They do.
Okay,
so much so that like some of the gathering members that go to this thing every year, they know the members of this team, and they were like, "Hey, we haven't seen whatever his name is, Officer Smith this year. Where's he at? Oh, well, he finally finished his degree. He's a lawyer now, and which is part of the thing that was very frustrating about the Forestry Service response on their webpage and things like that is it's very clear that the Rainbow family is working with them. I mean, they've got guys out there posted up that say, hey, you can't park here, you got to go down here, you can drop your equipment, then you got to run back out here 4 miles, whatever. The one thing that we did ask nearly everyone that we spoke with was how many rainbow gatherings they'd been to, and I don't think anyone ever said this was their first.
I would imagine a lot of that would come later.
Yeah, they're not going to stay out there for weeks if it's their first time. I wouldn't sign up for a 6-week program if I didn't know what else.
I actually did run across a couple of banjo players from here. We're in Marietta right now, so. But and I took a video. I think I showed y'all that video of them playing. But so we asked them how many gatherings they'd been to, and then what they thought about the law enforcement presence at this one versus other gatherings, and every single one of them said that the law enforcement response here had been worse than anywhere else.
Interesting, especially considering it's the same team.
Right.
I wonder if that's because of the local desire to crack down.
I don't know. There was a town hall meeting there the night before I went, and it's my understanding that the locals there were like, hey, we're kind of cool with this. In fact, I ran across several locals who would come out just to hang out and see. And like, there's one old boy, I'm certain he's gonna pack his bags and go to the next one with them when they leave here. Like it was in a camp called Stitch and Wedge, right? What these folks did was they taught people how to sew or make things out of leather, right? So
I had heard about these people. Like these are the hardcore travelers of the gathering.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain they live this life.
Yeah, what these people do is they train other people. Like, say, you want to live with the gathering going forward, they will teach you how to make these things that you can sell on the road to be able to fund yourself, to be able to stay with them indefinitely.
Yeah, this one old boy, man, he had these leather pants on that he'd made out of 3 deer skins, and like the stitching down the leg here was like this baseball glove type stitches. Really neat. It was very tight, and like they were dirty as crap because he's been out in the woods for 3 weeks now or whatever it is. But if I wasn't so fat and I thought I'd fit in them, I'd have tried to buy. Well, they also don't accept cash in this thing. I would have tried to buy them off of him.
They barter?
It's
all barter, but there's rules to the barter. You cannot barter things that are used to sustain life. So no food, no water, no shelter. Those are given freely.
Yeah,
so you can barter candy bars, cigarettes, pot,
and where
booze. They didn't have a lot of booze either. In fact, there was one point where they had a sign on a tree, and they don't nail anything. Everything's all done together with twine. They had a sign on the tree that said no alcohol but beyond this point, and then they actually drew a little point pointed to it. It's funny.
Eric Cumby wanted to know if they had anyone raising chickens out there.
I did not see any chickens. In fact, I didn't see any livestock. Most of the meals are vegan.
Interesting that they have leather pants, but...
Well, I think meat's probably a difficult thing to keep.
Sure.
Now, I did see, because locals were coming out there and they were donating. Like, there was a family there, they donated a bunch of donuts and cookies and things, hundreds of them while we were there. The day before, they come in and brought a bunch of kale. Someone brought turkeys and pork chops. So one of the meals that I watched them put together was they had this big roasting pan, and they put potatoes and onions in it, and then stuck a turkey on top of it and surrounded that with pork chops, and then salt and pepper and everything, and then stuck it in this clay oven that they had built for like 8 hours. And I'm like, that looked so good. When I went, you can ask my kids. Monday night I cooked dinner, and we had pork chops cooked over a bed of potatoes and onions because I was like, man, that's a good idea.
So they had told Greg, and Greg told us that the Forestry Service said he needed a bulletproof vest while he was out there. At any point, did you feel like you needed a bulletproof vest?
The only time that I felt even remotely intimidated was when I was near Camp Stitch and Wedge, and a couple of members of the TAC team came through, and like they were physically intimidating.
Yeah,
which is funny because I was armed.
I saw
no
that
one knew
guy.
That.
I saw that guy with the big beard and all the tattoos.
That wasn't him.
Oh,
it was another. There's 2 clean cut dudes. One of them, and after you started talking to him, you could tell one of them was trying. Like he was trying hard to just be personable, but the other guy, like, you know how like there's just some, man, how do I say this without being offensive to law enforcement? Like, you know how there's
I spent 7 years as a corrections officer working in a prison. Some people just don't deal well with other human beings.
Right.
I understand that. I have worked with some guys. Like, I'm a pretty personal guy. I used to, like I could go up and can talk to the inmates. I'm like, hey, you need to stop doing that. But, I've dealt with some guys that, they can't talk. They can't go up and talk to inmates. They can't talk to anybody. Like these, I'd send these guys in to go deliver a simple message to an inmate, And like 5 minutes later, I'm getting called in because there's like a massive fight near riot situation in there. It's like, what did you do?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I've definitely met those types of people before.
And that's the thing is like I don't think it's his fault. I just think he doesn't know another way to be. You know what I mean?
And it
That's
is.
who you
It
are.
is.
Right.
So you did not feel threatened.
Not at all.
Speaking of,
In
being
fact, I'm
threatened-
going back.
Okay.
I'm taking my kids. We're going to camp with them July 3rd.
Well, thanks for completely screwing up my well-worked segue there with your last-minute input. But anyway, speaking of threats, 59% of people claim that they fear anti-Trump folks after the, and a lot of that is driven off of the Sarah Sanders incident at the Red Hen, and then the follow-up derpiness from Maxine Waters. So, I mean,
Derpiness.
So where do these stats? Where's the article at? Where these stats
Really?
are
I
coming?
could have had like a 30-second warning.
Well, I don't have private.
This is
Messenger
live. There's
right
no
here, right?
warning.
You could have said
Was I gonna be like?
Jessica,
wink.
hold that up.
All right.
We're going to talk about
It
it in a
says
minute.
that it's a Washington Examiner article, so take it for what you will. But it says 59% of these people polled fear violence from Trump haters, and 31% predict civil war.
Civil War?
God, I wish. No.
Okay, Abe.
That's. I'm sorry, but that's a bit excessive.
And it's a legitimate poll. Mans Rasmussen.
Man, that's no different than like when Obama was president and everyone, like the Alex Jones people, were all fearing, they were getting ready for civil war.
Well, it says 31% of people polled believe it's likely that the United States will experience a second civil war sometime in the next 5 years. So,
5 years.
Wow, that's
Wow.
the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe it's just the realist in me. Maybe it's naivety. I don't know, but I just don't think things are that bad. Like
well,
it's.
I don't think it's ever been this divided, ever.
Yeah, I'll
No,
give you
I do
that,
agree.
but,
I mean, there is no listening.
But I mean, there's a lot of organization to a legit civil war. It's. Now, I mean, I'm not saying that there won't be some people that like act out, but
Someone asked a question, and I can't see it on mine. Can you see it?
Eric Cumby would like to know how many people feel threatened by extremists on both sides, which I certainly do. I feel,
You feel threatened by everyone?
yeah, everybody's a threat to me. That's why I stay armed.
Well, it's an interesting point, though, that both sides fear, like, everyone is so ready to attack the other side and to shoot down their arguments, but then they will say that they fear the other side and are worried about threats of violence and that we're in such a terrible place. So, I mean, I'm sure if you asked liberals if they fear Trump, their answer would be yes, but I don't know if it would necessarily be violence, but the constant communication about taking our rights and pushing women back 30 years and immigrants, and everyone has a different idea of what fear and a threat is.
Yeah.
Right.
And John Simpson brings up a good point, and we don't have the bombings and assassinations going on right now like we did in the 1960s. So, maybe it already has been worse in at least Matt's lifetime. But,
Can you think of an issue that people unite on?
that's very difficult. I was actually having a conversation with somebody the other day because I can't even remember what it was, but whatever the specific topic was, the claim was that like 96% of Americans agreed on this thing. And I don't believe 96% of Americans would agree that the sky is blue. Like,
Well, we don't even agree on
truly-
tragedies anymore. You know, I mean, if there's a tragedy that happens, we just hurry up and blame someone. There's no time to even unite in grief. So why would we unite in anything else?
Yeah.
But I can't think of a
that's
single policy issue that. I mean, I don't know.
Well, you know, I tell you one policy that
The children.
that crosses a lot of aisles.
Children.
And,
We are all against
you
the
know,
children.
Yeah.
No,
there's-
just you.
They're dead weight.
But
When was the last time you heard of a child paying taxes? No, they are a drain on the system.
you know, I'll just toss this out, just so that everyone can, you know, chew on this. That in the 2016 general election, marijuana got more votes than Trump did. It also got more votes than Hillary did. Across this nation, marijuana got more votes. So,
Do you want to elaborate on that?
Right.
I mean, just if you look at the polling numbers, like the
Did they actually
way
vote
that
for marijuana,
the
or
way
did they
that
just
the-
stay home and
I
smoke
wrote
weed?
in weed.
no, the way that the math is done is kind of wanky. But no, on a
kind of
serious
like Matt's
note, you know,
pregnancy rates and everything.
That wasn't wanky math.
but on a serious note, they did. You know, if you look at the number of votes cast for the legalization of marijuana across all of the states on election night, yeah, it was more votes. Because and what it was is because that is one of the very few cross-party issues that it's basically just become an age thing. You know, if you're, you know, in general, if you're
under the age
under
of
40
50,
and if you're
you don't
under
give a
40 and
crap.
you're not a cop, then you know you're.
There are some cops who are for.
Well, yeah, but I mean they can't say it, and that's the thing. Like I've kind of realized that, but you know.
Brad commented, "Why should we unite? Shouldn't we fight for our beliefs?" And it's an interesting angle to the conversation. I mean, we don't want to just concede. As an idealist, I always feel like we should start at 100%, and then if we have to meet people, I don't want to budge at all. But I mean, if you can't unite on something, you're never going to get anything done.
It's a philosophical thing. You got to start from a perspective of what matters most is coming to the right answer, and not necessarily my answer, but the right answer.
No, man. See, I like me. I'm philosophically an anarchist, but in practical sense, I'm like, you know,
So do you vote?
if we have to have a government, we're going to do it this way. Yes, I vote.
Eric Cumby wanted to remind everyone that last week's loser of the week, which was none other than Lawrence Norville Douglas Meyer III, was pro legalization of marijuana.
Well, that is, I mean, look, I will tell you, you know, I know that we don't have very many nice things to say about that man, but that for a chief of police to be publicly pro marijuana is very much an outlier statistically.
Right.
Maybe if he'd smoked more, he would have been nicer.
You know what? I can't comment. I don't know anything about the devil's lettuce.
Me neither. So do you get nicer when you smoke
Yeah.
weed?
I've never smoked weed, thank you.
Why? It's illegal?
No, I just have no desire. My mom told me not to
Why would she tell you not to?
because it's illegal.
Uh,
Let's see. We're still on the who
Yeah.
decides what is the right answer. Well, the people you elect. That's
I
why it's
mean,
important to elect good people.
Well, you know, and deciding what is the right answer is, you know, all about.
I think that probably depends on the question.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta, you know.
John Simpson said the most heavily armed,
Right.
Yeah.
which is the government.
It can be, but you know, so we've got 59% of the people that, you know, they're fearing Trump, and you know, also we've got, you know, kind of in that same line of story, you know, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, press secretary for the president, or for the White House rather, is receiving Secret Service protection, which you know, when I first learned of this, my first thought honestly wasn't the outrage that I'm seeing in some places on social
Matt.
media. Honestly,
I wasn't outraged.
I had no idea that she didn't already have Secret Service protection. I mean, I would just have assumed that the freaking press secretary of the United States would have Secret Service protection. I thought that, your random Joe Schmo congressmen and senators did. It was, but I guess I'm wrong. And maybe, Trump's, yanked up the purse strings on who the Secret Service is protecting now. I guess
What were your
Pelosi's
poll
detail
numbers on
got
that?
taken away.
I didn't pull anyone.
I thought you had I thought that was a Facebook poll.
No, there was no polling on Sarah Sanders.
No.
We're just
Oh no, it was
We're just chatting
no,
here.
No. Well, Jessica had a Facebook post about it.
I did. I just
and
was
my
talking.
comment.
Well, my comment originally was, I also was unaware, but I guess I never really thought about whether or not she had Secret Service protection. But my whole thing is, where do we draw the line? Like, at what point are you a staffer but not important enough? Like, do you have to be in the cabinet? Do you have to be out front? Do you have to have interaction with the public? Do they classify? I mean, at some point we're going to have to draw the line, because you can't protect everyone with that caliber of service.
I'm not a security expert, but I would say that, just kind of where I would kind of put that line just kind of in pencil is, if you're somebody, if you're somebody
right
that,
here,
if you're on TV, like, more than once a week, then, I would think that at that point it's probably like,
so Trey Gowdy.
yeah, I mean, like, if somebody knows, like, if you're known to, like, because look, that's what the real threat is. I mean, it's not the average American that, your average American going to work, coming home, taking care of his family that you have to worry about. It's some random nut job that watches TV and reads,
Alex
a
Jones.
bunch. Yeah, there we go. Reads a bunch of InfoWars and gets himself worked all into a froth. And I mean, so that's the thing is, if you're not important enough to be covered by Alex, I guess that's what we can call it, is the Alex Jones test. If you're not important enough to be covered by Alex Jones on, maybe we'll say twice a week, or twice a month. If Alex Jones, we'll pull the last 6 months, and if Alex Jones hasn't mentioned you at least twice a month, per month for the last 6 months, then we're gonna, then your Secret Service is pulled. But
Well,
as long as Alex Jones is talking about you,
But-
then
Well, hold on a second, though, because you bring up some really good points about being in the public eye and everything. But do you remember after the congressional baseball game shooting, or that happened at the practice, right after that there was all these calls for our congressmen to have security, and people were against that. So, and you could arguably say that they're more out front than Sarah Sanders. Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I mean, I don't know what the proper term is.
well, I mean,
Did I stump you?
she certainly upsets a lot of people.
So does my congressman.
Yeah, but that's all localized.
So, do they deserve Secret Service protection when they go home?
No.
No.
But it's localized. I mean, they protest outside their offices. They, all like different people, Black Lives Matter, immigration protests. I mean, depending on which party
Doesn't matter,
it is.
man. You're a congressman. Like you're a state or you're a rep.
I don't
right?
disagree with you.
So you're the guy that you control the purse strings, and you're the guy that is supposed to be accessible constitutionally to the people you represent.
Well, isn't she supposed to be accessible too as the White House press secretary?
To the press.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I mean, I don't think she should have. I mean, I made a joke on Jessica's thing, and I was like, no, she shouldn't have Secret Service protection, because when it's time to start shooting folks, that makes it a little more difficult.
Well, I mean, and strategically, and I want to clarify that I'm just talking, just talking tactical strategy. If you're trying to boot off a civil war, is the press secretary really a good way to start?
No.
But where do you draw the line? I mean, we joke about being in the public eye, but these people testify before Congress, and during different scandals, they're all out front at different times. So who is worth protecting and who isn't?
Well, and the thing about it is that, I've never mentioned this on the show before, but Mike Bryant, who's been a guest on this show, the security and analysis guy, I worked for him for a while, and I think that, I think the thing about it is that the Secret Service has some really, it shouldn't be a political thing. The Secret Service has some really good, strategies and security measures that they use and metrics that they use to decide, to do a security threat analysis and decide, who is a security threat and who isn't. And I know that, when we're talking about budgets, everybody always wants to put things into these lines, but I mean, the reality is that, they know who's a threat, they know who's not, and honestly, I don't believe that it would get political with them as much as, whereas it would if it was Trump saying, I want to see Secret Service walking around them because I think it would be good visuals or whatever. So, there are threat assessment tools that are available that could be, brought into play that probably could serve a lot more validity than us, sitting around trying to make decisions about.
Are you saying we're not qualified?
To make security threat assessments on congressmen? Probably not.
No, I don't know. I could probably make that list pretty quick. President, Vice President, and Speaker of the House.
Why? Why Speaker of the House?
Because he's in line.
Yeah, but he's third in line.
Yeah, he might be, but
I mean, what you think we're going to get like a designated survivor type situation?
I just
you ever
think,
watched that show?
No, I didn't.
It's a fantastic show. I would highly advise
Designated
watching.
Survivor. That was that Kiefer Sutherland?
Yeah, it was.
See,
it was,
I can't watch that because I was a fan of 24 and Jack Bauer. Which
He's always Jack Bauer to you?
Yeah, he's always Jack Bauer, and I go through withdrawals of Jack Bauer.
Yeah, but like the plot line for anybody that hasn't seen it is that basically what happened was that at the State of the Union address, Kiefer Sutherland was the designated survivor, so he was off site, and I mean he was like way down the list. He was like the HUD. I think he was like the Secretary of HUD was what his character originally was, and then he got, then they blew up the Capitol in the first episode during the State of the Union, and that's how he ended up as president. And
no need to watch, folks.
Right?
Well, no, that's only episode 1. After that, there's a lot that goes on. It's quite interesting, and I would highly recommend watching that show.
Is it on Netflix?
I don't think it's on Netflix.
I don't have network TV, so
I think you can watch it on go.abc.com. I believe. I'm not 100% on that. So.
Right.
But and also, speaking of discussing things that we have no real or implied knowledge of, Kennedy retired. Justice Kennedy retired today. So, what do you guys think's going to happen with that?
I thought we talked
I
about
thought we
this.
talked about that.
Yeah, we didn't really dive into, who do you think he's going to nominate?
But I said Napolitano.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess you did kind of.
We did talk about that. And then Judge Judy. I made the Judge Judy comment.
So what we're going with here is I'm going to abstain from comment. Jessica's going with Judge Napolitano. Wait, I did comment. I'm going with Ann Coulter. Jessica's going with Judge Napolitano, and Matt Lowe is going with Judge Judy. So,
let's talk about the loser of the week.
The loser of the week. Let's see. Let's pull up the most current polling data here.
Matt, do you want to tell a little joke while Jonathan gets this going?
I don't know any jokes. The jokes that I know I can't tell on
I have one.
Facebook Live.
I have one.
Tell your
The
jokes.
Brookwood Police Department.
No.
That is quite the joke. I will.
2 more officers were fired if you guys missed the news. Or not fired. Indefinitely suspended without pay pending an investigation that may or may not, but probably is because I have inside information, the FBI.
Have you
The
seen that
FBI.
video with all like the libertarian jokes?
No. Yes, yes. Yes, we're going to post that on our page because it's phenomenal.
Dude, that knock get a warrant.
Okay, so here we go.
Oh, okay. We'll come back to the people.
Oh, we have questions.
We have a question, but I don't know the answer, so perhaps you do. The question is,
If I don't, I'll fake it.
what do you think about Alexandria Cortez, the millennial candidate who has shaken up the U.S. Democratic Party by defeating the incumbent congressman for his seat?
Good Lord.
Well,
I love when incumbents get defeated.
yeah, I think that it's kind of, this goes to what we were talking about earlier in the show about, about kind of,
Let me tell you why you're not
yeah.
qualified.
yeah, I can certainly tell you why you're not qualified. None of us are qualified to be here, so. Except Jessica, she's actually like a real news person. We're just kind of here because I'm here because I've got good mic skills, and I don't know why Matt's here.
Because I'm a smartass.
Oh yeah, well, there we go.
Well, no, Matt's here because we are purists, and he likes public lands, and Bill Simon said there was too much congruence, so that's why we keep Matt around, because someone has to be wrong.
Because I have an island of socialism within my sea of anarchy.
Okay. Anyway,
Yet somehow taxation is that.
I can't even recall where I was anymore.
The loser.
No, we were talking about.
Oh, the
Ray.
incumbent.
I think that it's a lot. Democrat Party. They, at heart, they operate under a lot of the same kind of principles or with the same kind of behaviors that the Republican Party does. And every once in a while you get some old. You get just like you get an old Republican that gets knocked out in a primary by a young Republican. Sometimes you get an old Democrat that gets, knocked out by a young Democrat. Now, I mean, my understanding is that she is that the same way that kind of the Tea Party moved in with the, by moving to the right of all of the incumbent candidates. It certainly looks like by what I've seen on her that, she is pretty far to the left of the incumbent. So. Yeah,
Well, and I think too, like, this happens most often when the incumbent underestimates the grassroots groups that are behind someone who's willing to challenge the status quo. They don't even have to have done something crazy wrong. They just have to have enough people to help knock on doors and make phone calls and outwork a congressman who isn't working. I mean, we see that all the time at the state level. The incumbents that get ousted a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, just didn't work hard enough for it. They didn't think that a nobody could beat them.
Right.
So I think there's probably an element of that, other than, I mean, of course, what you said, the ideological shift, because we're swinging hard left ideologically with our voters, but
Right.
hard work sometimes beats money.
Right.
Sometimes.
I've always said the guy that knocks on the most doors wins.
Would you
I would-
try to hold on to the phone?
I'm going to put it in this little. No, I'm not. Just
That
be in my
is-
squeaky chair.
The loser.
I'm trying to pull up all of these statistics.
Our nominees this week
But,
were
yes.
the U.S. Forestry Service, Alex Jones for something he did in 2012, and Trump.
Trump for calling Giles fat.
Trump did not call me fat
Yeah, why was Trump nominated again?
because I'm too fat to join the Space Force.
Did he say that?
Well, no, but I mean, I would imagine that
Is there a weight limit?
Oh, the military definitely has
Yeah,
weight standards.
yeah.
They have a high weight standard. And
But
if you
this
don't
is
meet
space. You don't weigh anything in space, but you have to get there.
Yeah, well, yeah, you have to get there, and you also have to be able to, like, traverse through,
I think I missed the
Small
entire
little-
nomination process last week because I was laughing over a meme.
Yeah,
I didn't even know you nominated him.
yeah, I think you're absolutely correct there. Okay, so the loser of the week this week is the U.S. Forestry Service.
Woo!
Yeah, so, outstanding. Go.
Who are we going to nominate this week?
I truly,
Maxine Waters.
That's yeah. There we go. I mean, that's an easy one. So we'll nominate Maxine
Right? I
Waters.
picked the low-hanging fruit this week.
Yeah. So what we'll do is I'll tell you what
Jonathan's taking
take
notes
some,
this week.
We'll take something from the crowd. So if you're
Does anyone have any nominations for this week's loser of the week?
let's see who we
Eric
got.
wants Smokey the Bear for the graphic for the U.S.
He said there's a weight limit on the space shuttle.
Well, I'm sure there is a weight limit on the space shuttle.
You guys need to come to South Georgia to do a podcast sometime so Eric can join us.
We don't have internet down there.
I'm getting internet, thank you, Bullock Telephone.
All right, so
And Eric's house has different internet. He's because the government in South Georgia gets franchise fees, and that's how they decide who gets what internet. Like they buy the rights.
Snap!
what?
Adrian Damaris, he nominated the DNR, and that is a damn good nomination.
Why? Tell us more.
I know, the Georgia DNR, the Georgia Department of Natural Resources, because of the baiting thing with baiting deer.
Well,
So,
let's cover this deer baiting thing.
yeah, we'll talk about how stupid that was and the way that it worked, all right? So, it failed in the legislature, right?
No, what are we
Okay.
talking about?
All right,
Back up.
let's back up. We'll give you the
We're talking about a bill so important, so unimportant to Jessica that she didn't even pay attention to it as it passed through.
I'm like hunting. Nah.
right?
Some outdoors crap.
Yeah, she knew I had it covered. That's what it
That's
was.
right. That's right.
All right. So for hunting laws in this state, we've divided the state into the northern zone and the southern zone. Right? It's been that way for a long time. Used to, like the northern zone took a break in deer season between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It doesn't do that anymore, but for a lot of other things, they still use this northern zone, southern zone thing.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's
Continue.
right. So several years ago, the legislature made it legal to bait for deer in the southern zone. And then this year, there was a thing about making it legal to bait on private land in the northern zone.
Private land, as in like my land.
Yes. Right?
So
You're in the southern zone.
Well, I know.
Well, there's places that you would think are not.
I'm almost to the equator. It's hot.
But there are counties that you would think
Sure.
of like, oh, that's got to be southern zone. It ain't.
I'm sure the line makes no sense.
Right, it doesn't.
So
on this side,
they
the line
wanted
is
to tell
barely-
people what they could do on their own land.
They wanted to
Well,
tell-
the DNR routinely tells people.
Well,
what
I
they
know
can do
that.
on their own
right
land.
because they manage the wildlife because it belongs to everybody.
Please carry on.
All right,
Land
so-
the plane.
Well then,
Aw.
so the legislature took up a thing, or there was a bill in it about making it legal to bait in the northern zone, and it failed. And then Deal said, "No, we're going to fix this," and goes to the DNR and says, "Deal with it." Right. So they had a couple of town hall
Because,
meetings.
let me interject, Mark Williams is head of DNR, and his wife works for First Lady Sandra Deal, and they are both like this with the Deal family. So it's one and the same. So anything that Deal wants, Mark does, and anything that Mark wants, Mark gets.
Fair enough. So
Mark's from Wayne County, by the way. He screwed his district when he left as state representative. Just adding that in.
I'm trying to land this plane.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I
He's
was
taking the
never had an
controls.
opportunity to tell people that.
All right, so they had a couple of town hall meetings. I emailed in my thoughts on the matter.
You emailed it.
Yeah, I was going to go to their meeting in Rome, but I had a different meeting that night. It's like the 18th or something. Anyway, so the DNR doesn't have the authority to say you can bait on this land, but they do have the authority to move the line that designates southern zone and northern zone. So what they did, and this is the asinine part, is they made all private land in Georgia southern zone and all public land northern zone.
So, like, touching Tennessee on private land
Southern zone.
can be southern zone
Yeah.
of Georgia.
Yep.
When did they do this?
Today.
Wow.
I told you it's stupid. That's why Adrian was like,
Yeah,
he
that's
got
a
it on.
great recommendation, Adrian. Thank you. Is there a division that handles that, or is it DNR like overall? Because there's all those divisions under.
I would
So-
imagine
so
it's the legal division.
It all falls under the Department of Natural Resources.
Right.
And then under that is
Like
this whole
wildlife
umbrella.
and-
You got Wildlife Resources Division, and then the water stuff.
Right.
EPD
Right.
falls in there, which is our state's version of the EPA. And if anyone is listening and they're
But
really
worse.
rich, you should sue the crap out of them. Because you really need deep pockets for that one, but they deserve it.
The EPD is responsible for trying to take private property rights away from landowners in Georgia. They lobbied for that, and owner and former state representative Delphus Sutton, owner of All in Georgia, fought that bill. Thanks, Delphus.
I've actually worked on stuff in my civil career where. All right, so one of the rules that the EPD has is it's a 25-foot buffer on water, bodies of water, and then if it feeds a trout stream, there's an additional 25 feet. So 50 feet in either direction from rested vegetation, you can't do anything. And in North Georgia, I worked on a thing where a family had a home that was there prior to these rules. It was 100 years old or whatever, and the house burned. And their insurance covered it enough to rebuild the home on the existing foundation. And the EPD would not let them do that, so those people were homeless because of it.
It's your
Speaking,
government at work.
Right?
speaking of water and water rights and things like that, we have today there was actually a ruling, Supreme Court ruling of sorts. It's one that won't get a lot of press, won't get a lot of publicity, but back, there's been a water war going on between Georgia and Florida for many years.
We got one between Georgia and Tennessee also.
Yeah, and Florida
And Alabama.
sued
Yeah.
in 2013.
Everybody hates us.
So,
We're trying to take
what we
the
ended
water.
up with was, since this was a dispute that was between two states, it went straight to the Supreme Court. But, the Supreme Court doesn't do trials, so they appointed a special master to look at that. And the special master ruled that Florida did not demonstrate that Georgia could do what Georgia could do that would satisfy them without the Florida benefit, the Georgia cost ratio being just absolutely crazy. So, like, for example, Georgia usage cutbacks would cost hundreds of millions, whereas the value of the Florida oysters that are in play here, that's what a lot of this is about Florida's claim that we are killing the oysters. That's only worth a few $100,000. In a 5-4 ruling today, the Supreme Court ruled that the case should continue and Florida should get to make its case. The majority opinion. Listen to this. This is quite an odd and eclectic, team of justices here. The majority opinion. Yeah, Justice Breyer, Chief Justice Roberts, Kennedy, Ginsburg, and Sotomayor. The dissent is Alito, Kagan, and Gorsuch, and Clarence Thomas. So, with that, the water wars go on. And while, as Matt said, while the water wars are waging down on the south end of the state, up on the north end, we're trying to reclaim the Tennessee River. So,
This is part of it.
yeah, it's there was something I remember learning in history class about fighting a two-front war. So,
And just pointed, I think we're in it with Alabama too over the.
Water.
Is it the
Some
Coosa
base-
River
yeah.
that goes over there?
do they have lawyers in Alabama?
Yeah.
I
What's his
mean,
name? Roy Moore. He was Alabama, wasn't he?
Okay, so we only have one. Are you nominating someone for loser? Because we only have one so far.
No, we got two.
No, we have two.
We got Maxine Waters and the DNR.
Yeah,
You can't
Maxine
nominate two.
I didn't. Adrian
Yeah,
nominated
Adrian
the
nominated.
Okay, all right. So who's yours?
Who's yours?
I asked you first.
Mine's the DNR.
You can't take a reader. You can't take a listener.
Wait a minute. That's going to leave you without a pick. I'm not going to
We've
do
had
that.
four
We can have a four-way.
Well, we're not going to have a four-way, so I'm going to let the lady go, and
This chair is like squeaky.
Only you knew how you looked.
I don't care.
The loser of the week. There's so many. Oh, okay. I'll go ahead and nominate John Carson for the hands-free distracted driving bill that goes into effect. Only, even though we've discussed this at length, I'm going to bring it up again because recently he put out that statement through the Georgia General Assembly about the intent of the law. And even though that's not what was said, talking about swiping on Pandora and the intent of how it's already saving lives and all this nonsense, even though it hadn't been implemented. And I am repeatedly seeing from law enforcement agencies on Facebook them putting out graphics that totally contradict what he put out in that statement because they are looking at the law and saying this is what it says, so this is what we're going to enforce. And he and his friends in the General Assembly are trying to tell everyone, no, it's not that bad, and this is what it actually means. And I can see it already. We're going to have a whole bunch of people confused and arguing on the roadside about what they were doing, what is allowed, because our lawmakers are saying something, but in writing it's something totally different. So I'd like to thank him for causing so much problems in advance. Since he went ahead
crap law.
He said that, it's already saving lives even though it hasn't implemented. I'm saying it's already causing problems even though it hasn't been implemented. Because if our law enforcement are reading it, they're not wrong for enforcing what's in writing.
All right, so what was that name?
John Carson, Cobb County.
All right. See, I live in Douglas County. So. All right, so that's going to bring us to Maxine Waters, the DNR,
That's a good one,
and
though.
John Carson. And wait a minute. Jessica, your mother has a comment. So
My
that's
mom says
outstanding.
that John Carson is the biggest loser.
All right, so we know where one vote's going to go.
Right.
Jessica's mom has endorsed John Carson as loser of the week.
He's asking what the state law says exactly.
It basically states you can't touch your phone.
You can't. You can hold your phone. You can't hold your phone, but you can do something with one.
You can.
No, I think they took the one
They
swipe
took the one
out.
swipe away. They said everything has to be voice commands
But you can start your navigation.
before you leave.
Right. But I just don't understand. I mean, if you're holding your phone just like this and you're looking at your map and they pull you over,
You can't hold your phone.
right? You're
Yeah.
in trouble because you were holding your phone, even though
Right.
you weren't.
You can't
Commanding.
be supported, so you couldn't
Right.
even put your phone on your leg.
And like when you look at that law, I mean, in all honesty, you can make the claim that you can't wear an Apple Watch.
Well, they say that.
I know that's what they say, but I
Right.
mean, if you read the legislation as it's written, without the legislative interpretation and the legislative intent, you shouldn't be wearing an Apple Watch.
Right. Man, you know what's going to happen. Some state senator's wife is going to get pulled over, nailed with this thing.
Oh, do you know who my husband is?
That thing's going to get rewritten next year.
Don't tell my Lexus.
Well, yeah. Speaking of which, I'm very upset that Governor Deal, still upset that Deal vetoed that bill that was going to stop the police from towing your car when you were driving with an expired tag. But
He vetoed that?
Andy, the safest
Yeah.
way for your son to stay inside the law
Is to stay home.
is to not touch his phone at all while he's operating the vehicle.
Yep.
If he's lost, if he has an emergency, just tell him write it out.
No, it did say you can
Or
dial
pull over.
911,
Just kidding.
but I wouldn't do anything outside of that.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. So, do we have any closing thoughts?
No.
I'm very thankful for my birthday cake. I started the ketogenic diet yesterday, and today I'm brought a $5 birthday cake. So I'm sure
You
that's
only turned
keto
34
friendly.
once.
I hope so.
Unlike Jessica's turned 39 like 29.
39?
29 like 3 times.
Yeah.
39.
What about you, Matt? Do you have anything to close with?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't
Nothing?
think so.
No closing thoughts at all. Nothing to offer.
I am excited for my upcoming camping trip
I am
with
too.
the Rainbow people.
I am too. I hope it goes well.
And
I'm
I'm
not
going to
sure.
film the children's parade for you.
I'm an air conditioned kind of guy, so you know
God did not make
You
you
know
in
what?
his image to be outside with that.
It's cooler up there. It
Sure.
really is.
I guarantee you it's not cooler up there than it is in here.
No, probably not. It's probably 69 degrees.
Yeah, I do. I keep my studio at 69 degrees, so I like it to be crisp. Is
Right.
How I like the
No, I
air.
like it. It's cold.
All right,
And
And
with
with that-
that,
we are
Oh,
done.
see, they
so
didn't
I-
see that though.
they may have. I
So-
think they can gather what just happened.
So thank you everyone for watching. We appreciate you for tuning in. We appreciate all the comments, all the questions. Be sure to subscribe. That way you can see all of our podcasts. Also, be sure that you go to Google Podcasts or iTunes and download our podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe.
And rate
give
us
us
on
a
Facebook.
5-star review. Yeah,
Rate us.
yeah. Rate us on
Is
Facebook.
it only
as
5?
well.
You can only get 5?
I think it depends on what it is. Whatever goes all the way to the right, that's what you need
All
to do.
the stars.
Yeah, give us
Yeah,
all the
if
stars.
it's 3 stars
Yeah.
or 5 stars or 10 stars, whatever. Just all the way to the right.
Right. All right. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Bye,
Later.
Andy.